If you follow me on Instagram, it's probably no surprise that I love finger flips. They're amazing in part because of how many variations you can do with them, and they're also a fun, harder trick that any skater can work on without needing to know the ollie.
Hi, my name is Sarah, and today I'm going to be talking about how to finger flip from tailstop. Before trying this trick, I do recommend being really good at both hippie jumps and the yo-yo hop. And I have trick tips for both of those if you need to check those out first. I also recommend wearing gloves when you learn this trick if you don't want to lose your fingerprints. And I just wear normal running gloves, so whatever's comfortable for you. Unfortunately, I haven't found the perfect pair of gloves yet.
A finger flip is done by using your hand to create tension in the deck, jumping off the tail of your skateboard, allowing it to flip while you're in the air, and landing back on the bolts of the skateboard.
Today I'm going to go over finger flips in the toe side direction, and all that means is that you're going to push your thumbs down when you flip the board, and the board will rotate toward your toes. And the best part about calling it toe side is that it does not matter if you use your left or your right hand. When you flip the board in the toe side direction, it'll always be the same. Now, instead of breaking down the foot positioning first, I'm going to talk about hand placement.
After months of experimenting, I found that the best hand position for me is like this. I put my thumb right on the edge of the nose, I keep my forefingers right off the center axis of the board, and I keep a little space here between my thumb and fingers. But I tried many different hand placements before I found this one, and for this reason, I highly recommend experimenting with hand placement, just like foot placement, to see what feels comfortable for you and what works and what doesn't. Now, a clean finger flip is done by creating tension in the deck. And that tension is created by pushing your thumb down and pulling your fingers up. That's it. You don't really need to worry about flipping the board at all. You just need to create pressure.
Now, I realized later that a lot of that strength actually came from my wrist. So at first, I really tried to just use my hand to push the deck down and pull up with my fingers, but it would flip very slowly, and I had to admit that my hands just weren't that strong. But luckily, I realized that I could actually use my wrist. So when I pushed down on the board with my thumb, I didn't just use my hand, but I would tilt my wrist into that motion. And so when I tilt my wrist, I gain access to pretty much most of the muscles in my arm. And so this soft little hand grip with just a slight tilt, just accessing the muscles throughout my arm, really took the strength of my finger flip to the next level, which I desperately needed. Now, I didn't try to use my wrist to flip the board or anything. I just kind of leaned into it a little bit with my wrist and the muscles throughout my arm. And that's it. This is called preloading. So preloading is when you start to put pressure into the deck before you actually perform the trick itself. Now let's talk about foot placement, because after this concept of preloading, I think that your foot placement, or at least my foot placement, was the key to getting a fast and clean finger flip.
To me, the most important part of my foot placement is where the majority of my weight is resting. Now, a clean finger flip is done by creating tension in the deck, like I said, but you need your back foot or back feet to be pinning the tail down to create this pressure. Otherwise, the deck is just going to rotate. Now, after experimenting a lot, I found this corner heel side pocket to be the best place for most of your weight. You want your feet to be focused on this corner of the board. That's because pushing down with your thumb in the toe side corner of the nose is exactly opposite to the pressure of your feet in the heel side pocket. This setup will create the most tension. If your foot or weight is in the toe side pocket, the board will start to rotate before you even jump, and that's not going to be enough tension to flip the board. Now you can put your foot in the middle. If you have large feet, you might have to do this, but I found that it still didn't offer quite enough tension for me. I want the board to flip as fast as possible, and that means I need more tension and my feet need to be focused on this side of the tail. Similar to a coil being pushed down and sprung up,
when you put your feet in the heel side pocket of the tail and when you push down with your thumb and pull up with your fingers on the nose, you're creating a ton of tension in the board. Like I said, this is called preloading. Literally all you have to do is jump up because the board is going to want to naturally rotate around 360 degrees. When we use our muscles to turn our shoulders, the moment we let go, we return to our natural state. That's where we want to be. And the board is no different. When you start to twist the board like that, it wants to return to the natural state. And because we put so much force into it, instead of just flipping back, it actually jumps up and does a 360. The trick kind of performs itself, and I think that's really the magic of the finger flip. And you can do this trick with a few different foot placements as well.
The first variation is done with the board out to your side. You're going to set up with the board slightly angled and both feet as close to the heel side pocket as possible. Compress and preload the flip. Then jump up and bring your feet off the tail. When you're off the board will already be flipping because of that preloaded pressure. And you're going to bring your feet apart and aim for the bolts. The second variation is done with one foot. Some people use one foot to swing up while jumping, like a little extra pull into the air. So put your back foot in the pocket, compress and preload the flip, jump, and this time keep your feet apart in the air while the board is flipping and try to slam those bolts back to the ground. It can even be done with your front foot, but it's much harder.
Personally, I find doing the finger flip with both feet is much easier. I find that I'm able to jump much higher and have a stronger jump in general. But some people do think that being able to pump your front knee into the air gives them a little extra time. So really just experiment and see what's more comfortable for you. And then of course, you can always learn them later like I did. So let's talk about a few tips and issues that you might run into when learning the finger flip.
1. Try flipping with both hands to see which one is more comfortable for you. Until recently, I could only flip with my backhand, but now I can use both. So feel free to learn this trick with your stronger hand first, and then work on using the hand you'd like to. 2. If the board is rotating like this, your arm or wrist is probably moving too much. To fix that, you can either try to keep your arm still when flipping the board, or you can adjust your body and adjust your jump to follow where the board is naturally flipping. These days, I am trying to fix this movement, but sometimes I don't mind and I just jump to follow the flip. 3. Absolutely don't pull up. Just like the yo-yo hop, you don't want to pull up when doing this trick because 1, you can pull a muscle, and 2, it will probably pull the board strangely. You might pull up a little just naturally or accidentally, but you do not want to make a conscious effort to do so. Just focus on preloading the board and jumping. 4. The strength of your flip. I found in the beginning that my flips were flipping really slowly, which meant I had to either flip the board faster or jump higher to allow the board to flip. I don't have to jump that high now because I can flip the board much faster, but in the beginning I had to jump really high to give the board enough time to rotate, or the board would get caught in my feet, like this. So if this is happening to you and you want to jump higher, I recommend doing a few knee tuck jumps. It reminds the body to bring your knees up. You don't have to jump super high per se, you just need to lift your knees higher. 5. I would also recommend practicing jumping with your feet together and separating your feet in the air, because you do not want to land with your feet together by accident. So start with your feet together, jump up and touch your knees to your hands at waist length apart. This will help your body remember to separate your feet and land back on the bolts. 6. Like all tricks, be careful of how you're leaning. It's really easy to lean too far forward during this trick and land like this. Not bad training for balance, but not good for a clean finger flip.
Now, of course, before finishing this video, I need a method to work through this madness. So I would like to recommend the following 5 steps.
The first step is to hold the board upside down, resting on the tail, and just flip it down to the trucks. Just do a small little half flip and practice stepping on the bolts with your back foot. It might seem too easy, but this is just to train your eyes to find the bolts with your back foot. The second step is to preload the board, as I talked about. Put your back foot in the heel side pocket, preload the board, and lift that foot up really quickly. The board should rotate 360 degrees if you used enough pressure, and you can find the bolts with your back foot again. Just do this over and over. Really get a sense of how much pressure you need to put in the preload, and get familiar with that back foot finding the bolts. The third step is where it's starting to look a little more like a finger flip. We want to put both feet in the heel side pocket or close to it, preload the flip, and then jump up and back a little. The board should want to rotate, and you only need to find the bolts with your back foot again. In this step, you just want to get used to jumping up when it's flipping. You want to get a feel for what's happening before committing to the whole trick. If you jump up and the board is flipping just the way it should, you're probably ready for the next step. But if it's only doing a half flip, it'd be a good idea to get some more preloading practice before continuing. The fourth step is a little jumping practice. I think jumping from your feet together to feet apart is a really important aspect of this trick, and it will make it much safer, so I want to stress it here. Once you feel good flipping the board and landing with one foot, do a few of these knee tuck jumps, a couple hippie jumps, or even a few caveman attempts before you try to combine it all in step 5. It will remind your body to both lift your knees and how it feels to jump back onto the deck. Hopefully by the time you've gotten to this point, you've flipped the board 100 times successfully and have that preloading idea completely on lock. That will give you the most confidence to try landing this trick. So set up, compress your knees, and preload the flip. Jump up straight into the air, let the board flip while you separate your feet to find the bolts, and land safely. This is the most difficult step, but you can definitely do it.
As always, it's been a pretty long video, but I really hope this in-depth look at the finger flip can help you get that much closer to getting this trick on lock. I hope you enjoyed this video, I hope you got something out of it, and I hope to see you next time.